Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Aquarium Online Academy. My name is Sonia, and I am joined in the studio by my good friend Tina, and she is going to be helping us out with all of this magic that you see going on behind me. Today is Tuesday, October 7th, and we are super excited to have you tuning in with us. If you are watching this live, feel free to text in your questions, concerns, observations, and comments right here at this number, and that is going to be at 562-286-1838. And if you're watching this later on, feel free to still send us those questions. But if you're watching it when it's not live, go ahead and use that email right below here, and that's going to be live@lbaop.org. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started with our program today. We are going to be talking all about fish, so I hope you are excited. I know that I am. In order to get our scientists' brains warmed up, we're going to start by just making some observations. So right now, we are in one of my favorite exhibits at the aquarium, and this is going to be our large tropical exhibit. It is our largest exhibit here, and it has over 350,000 gallons of water. And so I'm going to step off in just a moment, but I want you to keep your eyes glued and see if you notice any sorts of different colors, any sorts of different shapes of all of our fish that are going to be swimming in here, any observations that you notice that you wonder about as we get ready to learn all about fish. Alrighty, scientists, go ahead and make some observations. I see our lovely zebra shark swimming along. I am also seeing a fish that I recognize from a famous movie. What else do you notice in here, scientist? I'm also noticing lots of colorful coral that we have in this exhibit, in this habitat here. And that is because this exhibit is modeled after a coral reef habitat, which often is going to have lots of vibrant colors, lots of different shapes and patterns going on, both in the habitat, but also with the fish that live there as well. Alrighty. Hopefully you were able to make some really cool observations. Again, feel free to always text those in right here with our phone number. I'm going to go ahead and get started talking about some things that make a fish a fish. And by doing that, I also want to introduce a new word to you. Or maybe it might not be new to you. But the word that I am thinking of starts with the letter A, and that is going to be adaptation. Perfect, amazing. We have it right here on the screen for us. Lovely. Adaptation. What is an adaptation? I'll give you a second to make your guesses, or maybe you already know. An adaptation is going to be any sort of thing that an animal has on its body that helps it to do stuff. That helps it maybe to move around, to eat, to hide, any sort of thing an animal has that helps it to survive and thrive in its habitat. So before we jump into what a habitat is, I want to go over some amazing adaptations that all fish share and that make fish a fish. So I have with me right here my amazing, lovely fishy model, and I just want to point out some things on this fish to talk about what they have on their bodies. So starting off right here, what do we think these are, scientists? These are scales. Yes, fish are all going to have scales on their bodies. A little bit different from you and I, right? We tend to have a lot smoother skin, right? But fish, their skin is going to be covered in scales. Moving on, another thing that all fish are going to have are, right here, fins. What do we think they might use their fins for, scientists? You're right, swimming around, right? In order to navigate and move around their environments, they have to use their fins, right? A little bit later, we'll talk about what each fin is responsible for. Moving on, another thing that all fish are going to have is actually we're going to take a peek behind the scenes of our fish to look inside. Oh, what do we have here, scientists? Gills. Yes, fish are all going to have gills because they breathe water, right? So you and I, we are mammals. We use our lungs to breathe on land, but fish, they use their gills to breathe in the water. And the last thing I have for you that all fish are going to have in common is going to be this right here, which is a backbone. Now, take your guesses. Do you and I also have a backbone? Is that something that we share with our fish friends? If you said yes, you are correct. Go ahead and take your pointer finger and touch the middle of your back. Do you feel a nice solid bone running up and down your back? That's going to be your spine, right? Or your backbone. Fish are also going to have those same adaptations as well. Alrighty. So in this program, we're not only going to be talking about adaptations that fish have, but we're also going to be talking about where they live. Have you guys heard of the word that we like to use that describes an animal's home? Let's see if we can get that word up and talk about it a little bit more. Oh, amazing. Right. Animals are going to live in what is called a habitat. A habitat is a place where animals live, where they call their home. So if that's what you guessed, you were correct. So as we learn about our different fish species today, our different kinds, we're going to also figure out how they are adapted to live in their habitat. Oh, and it looks like we have a question coming in. What type of fish is Dory? Great question. So our friend that is going to be, oh, and I see a few over here that are swimming just down below. That is going to be called a pallet tang or a blue tang. And they're really interesting fish because they have a really cool adaptation that allows them to point out these spines right by their tail. And that helps them to protect themselves. It helps them to stay nice and anchored if they want to hide inside of a crevice of a cave. But yeah, those are going to be called pallet tangs or a blue tang. That is the type of fish that is. Thank you for sending in those questions. Alrighty, let's go ahead and jump into the first fish that I want to introduce to you all today. I'm going to have my friend Tina pull it up and we can get started, scientists. Do we think that this fish is going to be really large? Do we think we're going to start off with maybe a small fish? Let's go ahead and see. Oh, good. Perfect. We are ready. Amazing! Scientists, what do we have here? I'm going to go ahead and take a step off so you can take a nice and close look at this beautiful fish that we have here. Lots of coloration. What do you notice about the size? What do you notice about the patterns on it? The shape even? Scientists, the name of this fish is going to be a Picasso triggerfish. And I love that name, and I also love this fish. One thing that I want to point out is just their eyes right up here. I just think they're super cute. And then their mouth right over this way. Look at that. A beautiful, nice zoom we have here. Some really cool things about triggerfish are that they are laterally compressed, and that just means that they are kind of squished laterally, which allows them to hide in those coral reef habitats. So their shape in itself is an adaptation that helps them to live in their habitat. Something else that's really interesting about these fish are that their eyes, right up here, are able to move independently of each other. And so that just means that one eye can be looking over here and another eye can be looking in a different spot, maybe down over here, and that helps them to be more aware of their surroundings. So another great adaptation that they have. Another species of triggerfish that is the Hawaiian state fish, oftentimes called the Humu Humu Numu Numu Apua'a, a tongue twister if you will. But these fish are amazing in that they are able to change their colors if they are feeling stressed out a little bit. They can get to be up to a foot to like 20 inches long, so a decent size. These fish can also be found in coastal waters off of Japan as well as South Africa. Um, and let's go ahead and take a look at a lovely video of this fish in action. So here at the aquarium, we have some red-toothed triggerfish that you can see swimming along in this coral predator habitat. In just a moment, we are going to be able to, there we go, see them swimming along perfectly. Let's make some observations. What do we notice this fish is doing? Yeah, so you might have noticed our fish right here sifting through the sand in this video. Believe it or not, these fish have very powerful teeth and jaws. They have 2 rows of teeth, believe it or not, on the top and bottom, with about 8 teeth, 6 to 8 teeth in both. And they are going to be using those to really be able to chomp down and flatten animals that might have a hard shell. So things like crustaceans, like shrimps and crabs, those are going to be what our triggerfish like to eat. And the last thing I want to say about these amazing animals is why they're called a triggerfish. So, believe it or not, they have what is called a dorsal spine. So dorsal meaning like the top fin, and I'm going to grab my model here so I can show you. So, it's upside down. There we go. This right here, right, this is our dorsal fin, so the top fin that is on this portion of the body. But they have a spine that is able to poke up just like this, and then a secondary spine that sort of acts like a trigger, and that keeps it in place until the trigger is released. Now, why might an animal want that adaptation? Well, they use it for things like defense. If something is chasing it, they can pop out that spine and move their bodies around as a way to defend themselves. But similar to our palate tang in the surgeonfish family, they also use that spine to anchor themselves in place. So that makes it hard for anything to remove it if an animal is trying to pull it out of a crevice or cave, but it also protects them while they are sleeping, so they can be nice and secure in those caves that they like to hang out and rest in. We're going to go ahead and say bye to our triggerfish friend and go ahead and see which fish we are going to talk about next. I'm going to give my friend Tina a second here to pull it up, but I want you to make some guesses. What do we think this next fish is going to look like? What do we think it is going to be living in? What type of habitat? Amazing! Look at what we have here. Probably not what you were expecting, right, scientists? I'm going to go ahead and take a step off again so you can just have a full unobstructed view of our fish here. And scientists, the name of this fish is called a weedy sea dragon. A weedy sea dragon. And I bet you can sort of guess why. Something that's awesome about this fish is that it's perfectly adapted to blend in to its habitat. Where do you think, or what type of habitat do you think it lives in? If you said kelp forests or habitats that have lots of seaweed, you were correct. Look at these modified fins here. Our leafy sea dragon has all of these fins that are adapted into the shape to match some kelp. They are endemic to Australia coastal waters, and that's just a fancy science word that means that is the only place in the world where they can be found. So they are native to Australian waters, and that's also the only place in the world where these leafy sea dragons are going to live. Now, fun fact, although we don't have these animals in our aquarium currently, the Aquarium of the Pacific was the first institution in the world to successfully breed these animals. And so I just think that's something really cool that I wanted to share with you all. Another thing that these animals are able to do, another adaptation that they have, is that they are actually able to change their color just a little bit to be able to better fit in with the kelp that is surrounding them. These animals are also able to blend in I just said blend in. They're also able to adjust the amount of air that is inside of their air bladders. So an air bladder is just kind of like a flotation device that fish have to help them balance inside of the water. But weedy sea dragons can modify or change that amount, and that helps them to be able to float with the water column, the same way that the kelp does. So they can move in and out, float up and down the water column, and that will help them to blend in with their habitat. So amazing adaptations that they have. These animals can live for up to 5 to 7 years on average, which I just think is pretty cool, right? I believe that the longest are known to live up to 10 years, so really amazing. And they're not going to be very large. They're going to be about a foot to a foot and a half in length. So not super large, but also not the smallest fish. Go ahead and I wonder, Tina, do we have a video of leafy sea dragons? Perfect. Yeah, no worries if we do not. Let's look at another. Oh, look at what we have here, scientists. What do you notice? Okay, so what we have right here is actually a leafy sea dragon. So while my friend is looking for a video for us, let's take a look at this one. What do you notice that might be a little bit different from the first one? I'm noticing that these fins are different, right? Even though they are still modified to mirror that kelp, that seaweed, they look a little bit different from our weedy sea dragon, right? More like leaves, wouldn't you say? I'm also noticing that this coloration here is a little bit more yellow. There's a little bit more yellow and maybe even some pink right here that I'm seeing, as well as like some orange. Whereas our weedy sea dragon was a little bit more brown, more muted and darker colors. But still, a beautiful fish. Let's see if we've got that video ready for us. Oh, okay. I am getting word that we want to hear about a cuttlefish, and I love that. I'm going to go ahead and let this video show while you make some observations, and then we can talk about some cuttlefish really quickly as that is what our audience would like to hear. Amazing. So I am getting more information about our friends who are interested in cuttlefish. And although they do have that name in that title, we will actually save that for our next program because that is when we can talk about those group of animals. They are going to be in a group called invertebrates, so they don't have a backbone. But in our next program, which is all about invertebrates, we will be sure to mention cuttlefish. So go ahead and stay tuned for our next AOA that is going to come up right here at 10 a.m. Alrighty, let's go ahead and move along to our next animal friend that I want to introduce you to. Our next fishy friend, if you will. And I have a feeling this animal is going to be very long and maybe a little bit slimy. I feel like he might have an interesting face. What kind of animal do you guys think that might be? Oh, here we have him. Look at this. Look at this smile right here. Scientists, do we know what sort of animal that we have right here? If you said eel, you were correct. This is, in fact, an eel. And a few things that I want to point out about them is you might be wondering, I thought you said all fish are going to have fins. Where are the fins on this fish? Well, great question. We do have a fin that is right here that you can see, I know it sort of looks like it might be an ear or maybe even a gill flap, but this is actually going to be one of their pectoral fins. And eels are also going to have a fused dorsal fin, so a dorsal fin that is pretty much connected all the way down their top is what our eels have. So they do have fins, they just look a little bit different than what you might see on other fish. Another thing that I want to point out about these friends is that you might notice they are always going to have their mouth open. In fact, Tina, do we have another picture of an eel that we can show? Just to point out the funny faces that they can make. In my opinion, I think it's kind of funny. I think it's super cute as well. Oh, look at this. Look at this silly friend that we have right here. Whenever you see an eel, if you've ever seen one, you might notice that their mouths are always going to be open. And that is because they do not have gill flaps on the outside. They are on the inside, actually right inside of their mouths. And so they have to keep their mouths open in order to breathe so that the water can pass over and bring oxygen to them. So that's one interesting thing about eels. Another thing that I think is really cool about these fish is that they actually have two sets of jaws. So they have their jaws that are going to be right here inside of their mouth, but they also have jaws inside of their throat called pharyngeal jaws. And what those do is they will reach forward, grab the prey that is inside of the eel's mouth, and bring it back into its throat so that it can swallow it. These eels are not very good at sucking up their prey, and so that's why they have that other adaptation, those second set of jaws that are going to help them to bring that prey into their throat, so they don't have to worry about having to suck on it super hard. So really amazing what these animals are able to do. Another really cool thing about eels is that they are actually going to be very slimy animals, producing lots of slime, and that sort of helps them as their own built-in neosporin. So that helps them with things like minor cuts and scrapes. It can also protect them against bacteria. Very cool adaptation to have that benefits these animals. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to my eel friend. And I actually, since we are going to get ready to wrap up, I want to introduce you to another amazing thing that all fish are going to have. And before I do, I'm going to pose it as a question. So, in just a moment, my friend Tina is going to pull up some schooling fish, a really cool video. Have you ever looked at fish that are swimming nicely together in a group and wondered, how are they able to do that? How do they all make the same movement at the same time? How are they all staying together? What if I told you that there is a really cool adaptation that allows them to do this? I'm going to go ahead and step off for a second so that you can all take a look here at this lovely video of some schooling fish that we have here. Wow, look at that beautiful spiral shape. And I believe these might even be some barracuda, which are really cool because they are very fast fish. But do we see here how they're all swimming in a pattern here? Amazing. Scientists, the reason why they are able to do that is because fish have another adaptation that we don't have called a lateral line. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a line that runs laterally across them that allows them to sense things like pressure changes in the water. They can sense vibrations in the water as well as just the movement of it. And so that allows them to move at the same time. And it's actually really important for schooling fish because it allows them to stay coordinated and together in their movements, which keeps them safe, keeps them nice and together. There is strength in numbers, and so that protects them from predators. It helps them to seem larger than they are. It helps them to just really move as one, move as a group as they are swimming. So besides one of my fun facts for today, we have another question. Ooh, why is a clownfish called a clownfish? Well, let's see if we can not look up, but pull up a picture of a clownfish. I'm going to have my friend go ahead and get ready for that. Oh, perfect. Super quick. Before we figure out that answer, I want you guys to make observations and see if you can figure out that answer for yourselves. So go ahead and just look at our clownfish, or our anemone fish as they are sometimes called, and see what you notice about them. Any guesses so far? Well, if you said that they are called clownfish, or if you guessed that they are called clownfish because of this coloration here, you are correct. When these fish were being named, the person noticed these patterns, these sort of stripes, and they thought it sort of resembled face paint that a clown might wear. And so that is how they got their common name, which is clownfish. Great question, scientists. I love that we are super curious today. These fish are going to have a mucus layer as well, so they kind of share that with our eel friends, and that protects them so that they are not going to receive any stings from the anemones that they live in. So this right here, these tentacles that you see, are going to belong to a sea anemone, and clownfish often make their homes inside of a sea anemone. So they have a really cool special relationship where the clownfish gets a home and protection from predators, and the anemone gets to have itself nice and cleaned by the clownfish, who are constantly eating bits of like algae and just cleaning up after it. So a very cool friendship relationship that these two different species are going to have. Alrighty friends, looks like we are getting close to wrapping up, so we're just going to go over the things that we talked about today. We started off with just making observations and seeing what we notice. Oh, here we go, amazing. We said what makes a fish a fish. Do you remember all the things that make a fish a fish? Gills. We said all fish have a backbone. We said they all have fins, and they all have scales. And remember, when we were looking at that clip of schooling fish, we also know that they have a lateral line, and so that's something that's really cool that helps them to all stay together. We talked about our friend, the Picasso triggerfish. We also said how they are able to have a spine that comes up to keep them nice and safely in their caves. We mentioned our weedy sea dragon friend, and that they live off of the coast of Australia, a very cool and amazing fish friend that has modified fins to help it to be able to blend in with that kelp there. And we also talked about eels and how slimy they are and why you might always see them smiling, which I just think is super cute, and that they are able to breathe because their gills are inside of their mouths, so that's why they're going to always be open. And we wrapped it up talking, just making some more observations and seeing what we noticed about our clownfish friends. Alrighty, scientists, that is going to be all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to another amazing episode of Aquarium Online Academy. We hope to see you again soon. Our next program is going to be very soon at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, so we hope you will join us then. And thank you, and make sure to take care of our oceans, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time.